Whether you're building an R2-D2 droid or crafting the perfect Iron Man suit, or you want to take your projects to the next level with real metal parts, well, you're going to need a CNC machine. And if you think 3D printing is cool, the Makera Carvera Air is about to blow your mind. Let's dive in and see how this desktop CNC can transform your creations right after this.
Welcome to the show that sets your mind free. Tech and gadgets, 3D surprise. Captain Creativity. Honesty inside to everybody. With David's guiding light, invention sparkles take their flight.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Captain Creativity. I am your host, David Merrill, and today I am super excited to be unboxing and reviewing the Makera Carvera Air. This is a desktop CNC machine. I'm just so pumped about this because typically we've done things like laser engravers and certainly a ton of 3D printers, but this is the first maker machine that is an actual CNC machine. So I am just so stoked about getting into this, and let's get started. By the way, this is one of the heaviest boxes I've ever had to lift. Definitely a team effort. Try not to do this by yourself. All right, so let's get started here. The first thing that we have over here is we have a bunch of materials that come with it as well as instructions. So we're gonna put this to the side. Very nicely packed in here. For this, I think the best thing to do is put it down on the floor. We're gonna try to pull it up by the plastic. All right,
By the power of Grayskull.
now let's go ahead and take off the plastic. Now we're gonna go ahead and lift the lid, and they have a very interesting lid that not only pivots but slides. So we're gonna go ahead and pull it open and then slide it back, and it just hangs there. That's great. Wow, they really packed this thing up in such a way that it's good. This is good because we don't want anything to get damaged in here. All right, so it looks like we have a whole toolkit right over here. This has got everything we need. Oh, and everything is very nicely labeled over here to show you all the different pieces that are in each box. All right, so now let's start unpacking this. We're gonna take a look at the manual and we're gonna start setting it up and get it going. I definitely recommend that you check out this unboxing set of instructions over here, and it's gonna tell you everything you need to do. We definitely also get some really cool stickers, which is really neat. In the materials that we received, we have a 2mm MDF spoil board. So we're gonna see what to do with that in a moment, but we're gonna put that to the side for now. Here's a great book on different examples and kind of like how to do them and what to use. So this is gonna come in very handy if this is your first time using a CNC. Okay, so let's go through the boxes. So we're gonna first start with the accessories kit. We have a ton of different milling bits. We have engraving bits. There's just tons of bits here, and we're gonna put that to the side for now. We also have the phone or iPad holder, which is over here. We're gonna take that out, so we'll put that to the side. We also have in here the power cord, and now we have a couple of spare bit collars and then backup screws. So that's fantastic. If you lose something, you break something, you may have some backup pieces there that we can work on. I'll just leave those back in the box. We have spare tool bits, which is great. They're really thinking about wear and tear, and you have some backups here, which is great. So here we have the wired probe box, and we have a couple of different shanks in here. We have an 1/8 of an inch, we have 4mm, 6mm, and 1/4 of an inch. This is our emergency stop button. Saw just recently where that's gonna go, so we're gonna hook that up as well in just a bit. Safety goggles, and this is a must whenever the cover is open. USB-C cable, and here we have a manual tool setter. The next thing we have is the toolkit, and let's check out what's in here. Beautiful, look at that. That is so nice. As you can see here, we have some spare tool bits over there. This is your bit collar installer right over here. This is your spindle collet installer. We have a screwdriver. We have some M5 screws over here. We have the 4mm dowel pin over here. And we have over here an L bracket. So all of these components here are gonna be used to kind of lock your material down onto the bed. So this is gonna come in very, very, very handy as you begin cutting into materials. And moving on to materials. So in this box, we have an LED assembly kit. Pretty cool. We have over here some single-sided PCBs, because remember, we can actually use this machine to create PCB boards. That's really, really cool. We have an aluminum plate that's about 10 by 10 centimeters. Very, very neat. We have here some epoxy tooling boards, double-sided tape. And here we have some waste board. This is good for just like sampling things. We have some ABS plastic. We have over here some acrylic, if I'm not mistaken. And then we also have a small sand block. And then we have also another big sand block. All right. Oh, and one other thing in the materials, we also have a mini handsaw. So that's pretty handy. Okay, so one of the first things we're gonna wanna do is make sure that we change the voltage for our region. And so we're gonna go ahead and put this onto 115 volt as we are in the United States. This is the illumination LED. It's gonna give you certain indications, whether or not there's an issue or completion, things like that. You have the dust shoe, which is this is the dust shoe. So in the back of the unit, you have an air inlet over there, and then you have the dust extraction outlet, which is over there. Obviously USB-C, USB-A. We have the power input over there. We also have an external control port over here, and this is going to be for the emergency stop over here. One of the other things we're going to do is connect our stop button, but to install the stop button, all you got to do, you're just going to place that just like that, go to the back side of the machine, and your stop button is right at the top. And there you go. So that is probably beeping because the stop button was already depressed. There you go. So now it's ready. So when you hit the stop button, that's what happens. You twist it and it's now open. Okay, so let's go ahead and just connect the dust shoe on. And what is so cool about this, that it's magnetic. So it really just kind of snaps right on and stays on with the magnet. The next thing we're gonna do is put this tube right over here. And so we're gonna take that tube and just stick that in. So now we are set. And that is really essentially the first steps in just getting your CNC up and running. So really no assembly, no hardware assembly. This is really very plug and play, which I love about this. All right, so I'm gonna start it up. Okay, that's it. I mean, that was a really short amount of time. I mean, that took nothing to set up. So that's pretty cool. Now, when it comes to that accessory, which shows the monitor on the side, you don't need to necessarily install that. If you want, you could just basically connect your USB cable over here, right over to your laptop, and you can just send it straight to the CNC machine. However, if you do want to send it over Wi-Fi, you can also do that, because we do that now in our 3D printers, right? It's a pretty cool way to just basically send over your design like you would through your slicer, and it just comes in remotely to your printer. Same idea. Okay, so if you want to get your Makera Air onto your existing network, you're definitely going to need a USB-C data cable. So you're going to need that USB-C to USB-C male-to-male cable, because it looks like you have to connect through the USB, and then through the USB, once you're in the Makera, you can then search as the Makera into your network in order to then connect and find your Wi-Fi. But right now, this is just a charging cable. So without that USB-C to USB-C cable, you can't even connect it properly to your existing network. And so I would definitely say that that kind of sucks a little bit, and I don't think that that should necessarily be an optional device. So what we're gonna do in order to connect here is we're gonna actually jump back in, connect through Wi-Fi direct, and then we'll be in our Makera Air. So anyway, I highly recommend that you check out the examples guide. This is excellent. When you go in here, you're gonna notice all the different projects that you can do, and I highly recommend that you do that because it really will get you going. You gotta do this first. Check out the projects. Now, for me, I've been told that the best one to start off with is number 3, and that is the 3-axis relief. So we're gonna start off with that one because I hear that that is really the best one, that if you're coming from the 3D printing universe, you're gonna definitely wanna check out the 3-axis relief first. Now, of course, if you're not a 3D printing enthusiast and you don't have any maker machines, do any of them. It doesn't really make a difference. But if you are coming from that 3D printing background, I think the best thing to do is the 3-axis relief. Okay, so in the next step, we're gonna install our spoil board, and then we're gonna go ahead and get out the necessary bits because going to now prepare the surface. We wanna protect the surface. Preparation will start off with a spoil board, and we're gonna go ahead and install that. We don't really have to do much on the beds in regards to the bed area. I mean, that's not our job, but in CNC milling, you have to basically do just that. So basically there's a hole in the top right corner and you're gonna put that right over there. I just love the fact that it's so bright. This is great. Okay, so the first thing after we put on our spoil board is we're gonna put on this corner bracket to make sure it is nice and secure. So we're gonna go to our toolbox and we're gonna take out this corner 90-degree bracket and we're going to put it on right over there. Okay, and so now we're gonna go ahead and fix it to the bed here, here, and here. So we're gonna go ahead and take the screws from here. All right, so we are going to use these screws. So we'll put one here. We'll take another one, put it over there, and we're gonna take another one and put it over there. Okay. So we put in our 3 screws in here, and now it's time to screw them in. So you're gonna take your Makera screwdriver. We're gonna screw these clamps right in. All right, one trick I will tell you is you definitely do not want to screw them in too tight. Otherwise, you may not be able to get in that 3rd screw. So the best thing to do is not screw it all the way in. So once you get it pretty much flush, and you can see they're all flush now, that means they're all in there. So now our spoil board is on. We have those screws in there. The next step is first secure the material to the board. So I'm gonna take a couple of these. It looks like we're gonna take about 4 of these. We're gonna put them out, okay? Because here in this step, we're gonna replicate exactly what's in the instructions. So now we're gonna go ahead and take our material here. We're gonna take the epoxy tooling board, and there's actually 2 in here. So we're gonna just use one for right now. We can see here in the manual that we clearly need to clamp it on the corner here, which will be over here. Okay, we're gonna need to put a clamp over here. We're gonna put a screw over here. Then we're gonna take a clamp and put it over here, and then 3 clamps over here. So let's go ahead and match this up and get to it. Okay, now of course, you could do it any way you want. I mean, if you feel it's more secure, this is the optimal way. But the whole point is when you're going to be milling something out, you're gonna just try to clamp it down the best way possible. There's no like rule of thumb of where. You just have to choose what you think is the best way to clamp this thing down. So here, as the material gets higher, you know, you could use some of the longer screws over here. You also have pins for setting up other objects as well. So you could always pin them in through the holes and so that they won't move. Okay, so now we're all clamped in. For the next step, we are going to need the number 1 3.175 by 25 millimeter single flute spiral bit. Okay, so I found one of them over here in the yellow top. and then the other one is an orange top. Now, of course, you have multiple yellows, so you're gonna have to take a look. You can take your phone, there's barcodes on here that you can actually scan, and it can verify it for you if you like. All right, so I got my 2 milling bits ready to go. At this point, we're gonna turn on the power and wait for the automatic homing to complete. So you're supposed to do this when the power is off, apparently. So we'll shut it off. So let's leave it off. 10, 9, 8, 7, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and... Okay, that's it. All right, so it's all set up now. Now we're going to jump into the software. Now at this point, it's gonna tell us now exactly what to do. And we're gonna change the tool to the probe, and you'll notice that there is a blue flashing light, and that will indicate that it's time for you to do something. So we're gonna change the tool head. So we're gonna lift this up, push it back, let it rest like that. And I see the probe right over here. And what we need to do is we need to remove the milling bit that's already in there. To remove the milling bit, all I have to do is pull down on this lever right over here. Take it out, and then you're gonna take this guy and plug it right in. There we go. Beautiful. So now you can see over here that the probe is inserted into the shaft, and we can now hit confirm. So we could see here right now that the probe is going to click the top right corner to calibrate it. And now it's gonna come on over to your material. And so, I don't know if you could see this, but at this point it's shooting out like a little laser onto your piece to show you where it is. Now I will say that at this point, and this is something that I'm gonna bring up with them, that if you have a reflective material, you're really gonna wanna do this with the door closed, because if you have a reflective material, you're not gonna want that laser to bounce back up at your eye. And so I think you'll be somewhat protected with this. I will double check with Makera if this is in fact any kind of protection. If not, then if you're using reflective material, you're really gonna wanna wear laser protective goggles, because it could bounce right back up at your eye, and that is a danger. So now it's asking me here to load up tool number 1. Cool. All right, so let's go ahead. Okay, we're gonna take this out. Same way we took it out last time. And we're gonna put it right back in its holder over there. Tool number 1 is gonna be the 3.175, and this is a single flute bit. All right, so let's do that. I'm gonna pull down the lever, and as the lever is pulled down, we push it in and then release the lever, just like that. So now that number 1 is done, now we gotta definitely close the lid, because this thing is going to start making a mess in there. So now we get confirmed, and wow, this is so cool. Look how it's coming right down. Oh my God, there it goes. Oh, this is so cool. Wow. So one thing I'm definitely gonna say is that this works faster than a 3D printer. I mean, it could work faster, and it really all depends. If you're adding a lot of material, like let's say you were making a plaque, but it was a thick plaque or a thick backing, that's gonna be a lot of additive layers there, right? A lot of filament is gonna be added there. But when you're doing CNC milling, you're removing the material. And it's sometimes much faster to remove, it depends. But sometimes it's much faster to remove material than it is to add material. So we're gonna just keep letting it go, and when we're all done here, we'll see where we're at. Okay, so now we're going to change to tool number 2. So So we're gonna lift this up. I am going to go ahead and change that bit. Now, let's also keep in mind, I'm pretty sure that when we change these bits, they could be hot. But anyway, yes, they are not that hot when you take them out, but I think you do probably still wanna give it a second. So tool number 1 is done. Let's go to tool number 2. All right, now when we have tool number 2 and you get it brand new, I'm just gonna show you, you're gonna have a red cap on the top. Take that off. Well, I'm gonna take it out of there. And then I'm gonna pull that red cap off. Oh, so look at that. Okay, so it's clear here. I can see exactly why we're using this. This is gonna be for very, very fine detail. But like you could just tell, like there's one for like the basic cutting, but then when you really wanna get the fine detail, you're gonna go to this number 2. All right. So we're gonna change the tool.
A ton
Okay,
of
we've
different...
done that. And now we can, once again, close the lid. We can hit confirm. So over here now, we can see that it is, once again, calibrating that new bit. And it's gonna calibrate it right there at the corner, sense it. Very similar to the way a print head will auto-calibrate itself as well. They do it here for the CNC machine. And now that we have that sharper bit, we're gonna get into much higher detail here in the cutting. And apparently we're now up to 2%. Okay. So it looks like when you're using the shank is really gonna be meant for cutting. I could already see that it kind of cut out not the entire perimeter, at least not as of yet, but basically when you're doing a lot of cutting and you're trying to take off many layers at a time, right? I'm using the term layers, but when you're trying to take off a bunch of material at a time, you're gonna use a shank. And then when you wanna get into detailed cutting, that's when you're gonna use the flute. Okay, so now towards the end, it was time for us to change the tool bit again. So we're gonna go ahead and open it up and we're gonna go ahead and change it. And so we've done this before. We're just gonna pull the handle down. We're gonna stick in tool number 1 and we're good to go. So now tool 1 is back in there. We're gonna jump into the software now. We're going to hit resume. Let's see what it's gonna do in its last 98%. It's gonna actually frame out the piece so that I can then remove it from the frame. And so sometimes if it's like a little bit stuck in there, you could use the hacksaw to basically kind of free it from the piece. It looks like it's gonna engrave it as much as possible, but it's possible that some pieces of it are gonna stick, or you may just need to kind of take off that fraction of a millimeter that it might leave for us. One of the things you wanna make sure of is knowing when you're gonna need a dust collector, because ultimately at the end of the day, the material buildup could get significant and it could kind of block the shoe. Okay, so we are done and we could see that this took about 2 hours and 18 minutes. So we're all done here. Let's take a look. All right, so the question is, how do you get the machine out of the way now? So I turned off the machine and I turned it back on in order to kind of get it back to its original position. There is a possibility that because I didn't upgrade the firmware, which I was unable to do through the process of how they want me to do it. As I mentioned, I don't have that USB-C cable, so I couldn't get a data connection going. And that was one of the things I needed to do to be able to scan for the Wi-Fi of my existing network. So this is just a Wi-Fi direct, therefore it's not gonna see the connections. Anyway, so now we're gonna go ahead and free the material. So we're gonna remove the clamps, and I'm gonna go ahead and grab my toolkit, and we're gonna put those screws right back. All right, so let's see what we got here. Oh my God. That is so cool. Wow, that is so cool. Take a look at that. That is so neat. So now that this has been cut, I could definitely see that it didn't go all the way. And we could see that right over here. And I want to take a video of this, because when you do this, you're not going to go all the way through, because if it does, this thing is going to kind of move around. So I see what it did here was it kind of ended here and here, so that the rest you'll cut out with the hacksaw. All right, so you're gonna basically open up your materials box and you're going to find that mini handsaw right in there. And now we're gonna just cut our piece loose. So, okay, and this one, okay, now piece is loose. Not bad. That is pretty cool. So when it comes to the different features that the Carvera Air have, you have the quick tool changer, auto probing leveling, 4th axis support with an additional module. You also have the ability to do laser engraving with an optional laser module. In order to keep your space nice and clean, you could also hook up an external dust collection unit, and then you have the ability to control all of this through an app. When it comes to materials, it can cut wood, plastic, aluminum, copper, brass, carbon fiber, wax, PCB, and epoxy resin. They put a lot of work into their CAM software, trying to make it as intuitive as possible, from everything from 2D milling, 3D reliefs, 3D milling, 4th axis, laser or PCB milling. When it comes to the work area, it gives you a 30 by 20 by 13 centimeter build area, which is 11.8 inches by 7.9 inches by 5.1 inches. When you're trying to CNC 3D objects and you're working with the 4th axis module, this can actually handle a size of 3.6 inches by 7.9 inches. When it comes to precision, the spindle runout is less than 0.01 millimeters and the motor resolution is 0.005 millimeters. If you want to be able to use the Carvera Air with Fusion 360 or SolidWorks, AutoCAD, VCarve Pro, Aspire, Illustrator, all of those can work with the Carvera Air. So at the end of the day, who is the Makera Carvera Air for? I could definitely say that having a desktop CNC like this in any STEM lab or makerspace is a huge win. This machine costs $2,499, and I know what you're thinking. The price at $2,499 might sound a little high, but for desktop CNC machines, that's actually a pretty good price, especially considering all the precision, auto calibration, plug and play setup you get right out of the box. And so I've dropped the link in the description below. So if you're interested in upping your game and adding something like this to your makerspace or workshop, check it out below. It's all about using the right tool for the right job. Sometimes additive manufacturing with a 3D printer is perfect, but other times subtractive manufacturing with a CNC is the way to go. We're all still learning and we're all still figuring out the best tool for each project, and that's the fun part of making. Now, this is also very important. I really want to make a lightsaber out of this. I want to CNC a full metal lightsaber. And don't forget, if you got value from this video, make sure to hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe. We got a ton of new CNC and 3D printing and pop culture builds coming your way. Whether you're carving, printing, or engraving, keep experimenting, keep building, and as always, happy printing, or in this case, happy carving.